Jai Meher Baba. Today we are gathered virtually in the Darshan room of Beloved Archives to celebrate Avatar Meher Baba's birthday. Behind me is the threshold that holds Beloved Baba's sandals and two chairs that he sat on in 1950 and 1953. For the past 2 years, while in seclusion, the pandemic revealed that all of us are interdependent. When one of us suffered, we all suffered. Each day it became evident that our own well-being and existence was bound in the well-being and existence of others. Today, the only basis of a spiritual life is mutual caring and mutual sharing. And each day, as we share Meher Baba's message, we strengthen our conviction in his divinity and deepen our connection with the Beloved, who loves us more than we can ever love ourselves. 1953 will appear in the annals of the Avataric Advent as the year when Avatar Meher Baba, the same, the eternal, indivisible, infinite one, who manifests himself in the form of man as the Avatar, as the Messiah, as the Prophet, as the Ancient One, declared himself in Dehradun on September 7, 1953, as the highest of the high. On this day in September, Meher Baba said, "I am for the few who scattered amongst the crowd silently and unostentatiously surrender their all." Among those few who stood in service at the feet of the Lord were my father, Keki, my mother, Freni, and their two children, Mahrukh and myself, Noshirwan Ansar. Today, I will share a few anecdotes of my life with Beloved Baba as the playmate of a 7-year-old. The family, during the New Life activities, in which all of us actively participated, of Meher Baba and his companions in 1950, we were swept away by the currents of love and devotion. Meher Baba the Master became companion and elder brother to Keki and Freni, loving, compassionate, caring, yet firm and unyielding as the new life situations manifested lessons that had to be worked through with courage, fortitude, and cheer. Qualities that came to be tested under rapidly changing circumstances. Events of 1953 started to unfold on February 2nd, 1953, when a letter was dictated by Meher Baba to his workers in Dehradun. During my stay at Dehradun, no mass darshan, no individual darshan, no interviews for anyone. I will contact your families when I feel like doing so. In short, see that I am not disturbed and I am free to do my work as I want. Meher Baba left Ahmednagar for Dehradun on Sunday, February 15, and arrived in the valley of Dehradun in the foothills of the Himalayas on Wednesday, February 18. During his 10-month stay in Dehradun, thousands of seekers came into Meher Baba's orbit. But a few families formed a nucleus of his work. On arrival, Meher Baba and the Mandali were driven to bungalows on a road called Rajpur Road in Dehradun. One of the first tasks Baba gave my father was to contact 7 men who were not wealthy nor poor, but never ever stretched their palm to beg or ask for assistance. It was a difficult task. When he had rounded all of them, 1 or 2 of them hesitated and refused to go to Baba. Finally, he was able to take 7 men to Baba, as he had instructed. Baba washed the feet of these 7 poor people. He cleansed the dirt of their feet, dried them with a towel, and gave each of them 50 rupees after bowing down to them. Someone asked Baba whether his act of bowing down helped the poor of the world. And Baba replied that all the poor in the world with sanskars similar to those whom he bowed down to would be spiritually helped. Word had gone around that Meher Baba was in town, and people from all walks of life clamored for his darshan. He graciously agreed to meet the masses on March 23rd, about a month later. But till then, Baba traveled to Haridwar, Rishikesh, and other parts of North India, contacting masts, sadhus, and mahatmas. Baba, with his women mandali, went to the Kumbh Mela, a Hindu religious festival held in Haridwar, where thousands and thousands of people gather every 12 years. And Baba bowed down to 10,000 sadhus every single day. His universal work with them and others continued unabated. 2 days before the darshan program, the women mandali celebrated Navroz, New Year's Day, according to the Parsi calendar. The Nalawala family was invited to spend the day with Baba and the mandali. As a 7-year-old, I remember Meher Baba as a playmate, a perfect playmate, who is the beloved, who is the father, and who is also the child. A playmate with whom I played little games so that I would get an additional piece of candy or another embrace. I played Find the Hidden Finger with him and received the gift of a toy lamp that the women mandali had so deftly crafted. On March 23rd, Darshan Day, hundreds of seekers stood in line to pay homage to the avatar. When an atheist came up to Baba and declared his belief, Baba said, everyone is an atheist till he finds God by actual experience. It is better to be an atheist and be honest in words and deeds than to pose as a lover of God and lead a dishonest life. God is independent. He needs no worship. He only needs that we be honest. When a seeker longingly asked Baba, Baba, how do I love God? Meher Baba answered, how to love God? If a man falls in love with a beautiful girl, what happens then? No system or principle exists for him. He won't fear ridicule. If people call him mad, he does not mind. One should become lost in the idea of possessing the beloved. When you are prepared in your heart of hearts to gain union with God at the cost of your life and the ridicule of the whole world, then perhaps you may be said to have entered the lane of divine love. On September 7, 1953, Meher Baba invited my family to celebrate Zoroaster's birthday. On this day, Meher Baba's chief woman disciple, chose to celebrate Meher Baba's birthday as well. Baba stood on a colorfully decorated pattern called Rangoli. In India, they call it Rangoli, which is patterns on the floor in several different colors. Meher applied vermilion on his forehead and said, "Happy birthday, beloved Baba." It was then that a 7-year-old piped in and said, "Why is my birthday not being celebrated?" Meher said, "And why not?" As Baba stepped aside, I stood on the patterned floor and Meher applied vermilion on my forehead. My sister Maruk sang a bhajan while I played the drums on the dining table, eagerly waiting for beloved Baba to put a morsel of sweet, delicious rava in my mouth. It was a joyous, memorable birthday celebration, and even today I see it enacted on beloved Baba's 128th birthday. There were several occasions when Baba visited my home, and you may have read quite often, it was the headquarters during the New Life, 36 Lytton Road, the home of the Nalawala family. During those days in 1953, when he went to the circus, he took us along with us. He took the children along with him. And the next time when he went to see a 3-dimensional film, Meher Baba sat with my sister and I, sharing in the fun and chuckling when he saw us feel scared at the 3-dimensional images coming at us. But at the same time, he worked intensely through the focused attention of the audience. And now a little funny incident that happened. One day, while the family was walking around with Baba and the Mandli in the botanical gardens and naming different flowers, Sheru Chacha, a long-time devotee of Baba, with childish innocence, pointing to the border of cornflowers, and exclaimed, "Baba, look at these cornflakes." There was laughter all around, and Mani added, "Well, then let's have breakfast here." In October, Baba directed representatives of different major religions to sit in their respective places of worship and share in his work. My father Keki narrates, to represent the Zoroastrian religion, Baba chose me to sit in the Parsi burial ground between midnight and 2 in the morning reading from the Avesta. He designated Abdul Ghani Munsif to sit in the mosque. He designated C.D. Deshmukh to sit in the church, to sit in the Hindu temple, and he designated Dr. William Donkin to sit in the church. My father narrates that Baba asked me if I would be scared sitting in a cemetery. I replied in the negative. On the first day, on completion of my prayers, I heard footsteps and feared that the ghost of a dead Parsi who had been buried without proper burial ceremonies had risen. Sure enough, I saw in the darkness a man in white approaching him. I turned pale and fear rapidly repeated Baba's name. The very next moment I was relieved to see Baba himself standing beside me. He had come in a white flowing sadra and I mistook him for a ghost. I repeated these prayers for 7 days, and on the 7th day, Baba came to the burial grounds, washed his face and feet, and prayed with a kasti, which Zoroastrians wear, which is a symbolical waistband around. Later removed it, circled it 3 times round Zoroastrian's photograph, and left. That kasti has been preserved at Beloved Archives. In the Hindu temple, the church, and the mosque, he prayed in accordance with the scriptures of those religions. Once again in November, Meher Baba agreed to give darshan to seekers of truth. Hundreds queued up with garlands and offerings in hand. They also came to hear Meher Baba's message. To see me at close quarters, to do obeisance to me, to offer me fruits and flowers, to bow down to me, and then to return to your homes can never mean that you have had my darshan. Baba explained, it is not miracles, but understanding which can bring you true freedom. If you have firm faith and unfaltering love for the God-man, your way to the abiding truth is clear and safe. When visually impaired children from a local school, the name of the school was Nanni Dunya, small world, when they brought a long garland of flowers for Baba and wrapped it round his head, he hugged the children and told the headmaster of the school that he was very happy to see the little children since he himself was a child. During this meeting, approached by a seeker who had undergone suffering, Baba said, rich or poor, great or small, man or woman, everyone is under the spell of some sort of suffering. The relief for every kind of suffering is within us. If we try to live honestly, act honestly, think honestly, in every walk of life, under every circumstance, if we try to put our wholehearted faith in God, that relief is found. Baba added, we are already the possessor of infinite power and happiness, but it is the way of life that keeps us away from enjoying these eternal treasures of God. It was a day of darshan, singing, and joyous devotion. The beloved one was happy. It was truly a day of joy. On the days when Baba's universal work needed a change of pace, he called for a cricket set I owned, and the master and his disciples played cricket in the compound where he lived, sometimes batted and at other times bowling and fielding. On one such occasion, one of Baba's disciples, whose name was Kishan Singh, while playing cricket with the master, noticed a group of people, his colleagues from the government office, where he had earlier worked and had been a senior officer witnessing the game. He was deeply embarrassed and upset, and negative thoughts flowed through his mind. He feared his colleagues would jeer and make fun of him and wonder what kind of a master he had who played cricket on an uneven courtyard and with a rubber ball at that. End of play. And as soon as Baba entered the Mandli hall, he turned to Kishan Singh and said, "I wonder what these people on the road be thinking about my playing cricket." Singh could not contain his thoughts any longer and said, "Baba, why think about them? I too felt embarrassed." "Am I not a human being? Have I no right to play cricket?" Baba shot back. Yes, Baba," stuttered Singh. "I only felt that we could have played cricket on a proper field rather than on this uneven courtyard." The very next morning, Baba walked into Mandli Hall with a newspaper, pointing out to Kishan Singh a news item which said that the Indian president's team would play cricket with the Indian Prime Minister's team in New Delhi. "You say I have no right to play cricket? Dr. Radhakrishnan, the vice president, is older than I am. What right does he have to play cricket? What will the entire country think of him?" Thereafter, Baba had a cable sent to Delhi asking for 14 seats to be reserved to witness the cricket match. Kishan Singh understood. Truly, Baba's ways of working are unfathomable. Baba traveled to Delhi a day before the commencement of play. On the appointed day, Baba and his party reached the stadium at 11 in the morning, while play was to start at 2 in the afternoon. The entire party occupied the seats in the VIP enclosure. A short while later, a man walked up and put up a placard which said, "For teams only." Kishan Singh, with a worried look, pointed it out to Baba, who told him to relax. No one recognized Baba since he was dressed in Western clothes, complete with hat and dark glasses. A short while later, another man came along and removed the placard to the relief of Kishan Singh. Baba looked at Singh and smiled. The game started as soon as all the distinguished players had assembled. Abruptly, Jawaharlal Nehru, India's Prime Minister, stood up, turned around, and stared at Baba for a long time. Baba stared back. As soon as he resumed his seat, Baba and the party left the stadium. His work was complete. This indeed was another inexplicable method of Meher Baba's internal work, that he worked with the country and its politicians. On a personal level, Meher Baba dealt with his loved ones in a patriarchal way. My father that year had been a worried man. There were definite indications that he would lose his job with the Singer Sewing Machine Company. At the same time, he was anxious that if the company kept him on its rolls, he would strive to reach a managerial position. One of the Mandli, Baidul, a simple man with malapropisms, always caused much laughter, asked Baba to make Keki the boss, meaning boss, of the company. And amidst laughter, Baba nodded and dismissed the matter. When Keki actually lost his job a few months later, Baba cabled, "Do not worry, all will be well. God is Malik." Malik means the chief, the ultimate leader. Baba encouraged him to take over the business from the company and start on his own steam. In a letter in Gujarati, which I have freely translated, Baba wrote, "Do not worry in the least. Our God is a powerful one. He is our only Lord, and we will act exactly the way He wills it. Go ahead with your plans for an independent career. My nazar, my grace is on you. So go ahead and become the boss. Why are you worried? Have hope. Be courageous. It is only with courage that you will succeed in your endeavor. Where there is honesty and purity of heart, it is there that God resides. Therefore, never leave God's company. Why think of old age and retirement when now is the time for you to be youthful? Do not worry at all. Set your new career into motion and be prepared to be the boss." Meher Baba's encouragement and guidance was indeed a shot in my father's arm. His business took off eventually, putting it on an even keel. During his Dehradun visit, Meher Baba and the women Mandli spent several hours at my father's shop, and Baba sat in the chair that was to make keki from a traveling salesman of the company to the manager and owner of a small business. Each day was golden in the years with Meher Baba. Each day unfolded a different facet of his life and compassion. For Keki and Freni, my parents, Meher Baba was the eternal beloved, their companion for many lifetimes. And for their children, Maharuk and Noshirwan, Baba was the playmate, simple, loving, and kind. On November 22nd, 1953, Meher Baba left Dehradun for Bombay on his way to Mahabaleshwar. The close ones had gathered at the Dehradun railway station to bid the beloved farewell. As Baba boarded the train, my older sister Maharuk turned to my mother and said, "I see a bright light around Baba's face, a halo." She had seen his humanity. Now her innocent eyes had glimpsed his divinity. I would now like to present Jamie Newell. Jamie is an educator, counselor, personal coach, professional musician, and director of the Depth Psychology Alliance. He has been a follower of Meher Baba for over 40 years and has a deep understanding of Meher Baba's cosmology. Jamie Newell.
Thank you, Narshwan. Can everybody hear me? That was a very nice introduction. Prakash, am I being heard properly?
Yeah,
good. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Narshwan. There's nothing more wonderful to me than to hear someone speak about being in Meher Baba's presence. It was really lovely to hear those stories. So, Prakash, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if I can do that. So everybody, first of all, doesn't have to look at me and can look at Meher Baba. Okay, hope you can see that. Oops. There we go. Can you all see that, Prakash?
Yes, we can.
Good.
Thanks, Jamie.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thanks, Jay Baba. Nice to hear your voice. So, thank you all. Thank you, Narshwan and Maruk and Prakash and everyone for doing this and for asking me to talk. The title of my little presentation is Meher Baba and the Direct Experience of God. So, just to begin with, a little disclaimer. Very first off, anyone who signed up for this presentation and thought they were going to get a direct experience of God will be very disappointed. That's not the purpose. I do want to talk about Meher Baba's direct experience of himself as God and some implications of that. But my main disclaimer is just a standard one that Baba said. I don't know the exact quote, but he said that anyone can talk about him and his work, and they can say what they want about him, interpret his work, as long as they make it clear that it's their own interpretation. So I want to be clear that what I'm going to say is just my own reflections about Baba, what I've thought about him, and nothing of this should be taken as gospel or without question. And as a matter of fact, I hope we'll have time. I'm going to try to make sure I talk a little less than an hour, and then we can have some discussion, I hope, and some questions. How I think about Meher Baba and his work has been formed by certainly many things, but three things I'm going to mention now. One is simply the way I heard about Meher Baba and found Meher Baba was to find his books in a bookstore, reading his discourses particularly, and studying his works is the main thing. Precautions, there's some way you can get that little bell to stop happening. It would be helpful. So reading about Baba, then that led to my, thankfully, meeting many, many people who had been with Meher Baba, so I learned something from being with people like Darwin Shaw and Adi K. Irani and Elizabeth Patterson and Erich, of course, and Meher Baba's beloved Mera, and just so many wonderful people. And then finally, my university training is in history of religions. I had studied pastoral counseling and theology in divinity school, and then history of religions in graduate department of religion. And that all the time through all those programs in my training there, I always thought, well, what has this got to do with Meher Baba? So it's all related to, in my mind, I related all those things to Baba, and so various things would come up in my mind. Now, a lot of people say, well, why should we be thinking about Meher Baba? Shouldn't we just love Baba? This stuff is all too intellectual and too people, it's all about the heart with Baba. And I, of course, agree 100%. But I remember, but I want to just give you three kind of responses to that, to why I like to spend time thinking about Meher Baba's theology, the implications of it, and what all of this can mean for us. And one thing is that Adi K. Irani, this is the main thing for me. Again, I loved Adi, had the good chance to meet Adi and listen to him talk many, many times. And he would always say that if you want to just love Meher Baba, if you just want to follow Meher Baba, you don't have to read a single book, you don't have to think about him, you don't have to do any of that. But if you want to tell others about Baba, then you should know something. You should be able to answer questions. You should be able to know as much about Baba as you can find out. And then you can be informed, and you can speak intelligently about things that Baba had to say. So main thing is when we encounter others and they ask about Meher Baba, that we can say something about that. Another thing is, which is sort of grows from this, is that there's a huge growth in the numbers of followers of Meher Baba, mainly in India at the moment. But I feel that's just, it's certainly, we see it here in Myrtle Beach, that it's growing and growing. People keep coming to the Meher Center, more and more people. The number of people are expanding. And for example, before COVID, some of us would go in, were asked to go and sit in the original kitchen and just be present for new people if they had questions, to be able to answer them. So that's another reason. And then finally, I feel there's just great beauty in Meher Baba's work and in his words, and reflecting on them is a very beautiful experience. He wasn't just wasting his time when he gave discourses. He wasn't wasting his time when he gave God Speaks. He gave us a lot of very, very beautiful and very, very valuable work, and I think reflecting on it is worthwhile. So that's my little defense for why I like to think out of the box a little bit about Baba. But the main point that I want to make today, getting all that out of the way, is simply this. It's my own conclusion that Meher Baba's entire ministry is based on his own personal experience of revelation. That is to say, it's based on his own experience, direct experience of God. Not only of God, but his direct experience of himself as God. Everything that Meher Baba did and said as a spiritual master flows from this initial experience of the revelation of his own godhood. And revelation is just it's a word that people use in religious studies, and it just means an internal, in theology they say the self-disclosure of God. But God disclosed himself to himself in Meher Baba, we might say, if we're going to use that language. So likewise, Meher Baba had this experience. From that experience came his ministry, and he likewise emphasized the importance for each one of us, each one of his followers, to strive towards having our own direct experience of God. In other words, a direct experience of him. To whatever degree we have conviction in him and what he says about himself being God, then he's also saying a direct experience of him. So again, now Narshwan, I didn't know he was going to do this, but he gave a lovely example of Baba talking about having a direct experience. He said, everyone is an atheist. This is not the direct quote, but this is relating to the story that Narshwan said, that everyone is an atheist until they have a direct experience of God. He also says in his discourse on the new humanity, the coming civilization of the new humanity shall be ensouled not by dry intellectual doctrines, but by living spiritual experience. And then just one more where he kind of puts it all in perspective. He says, quote, it is better to study God than to be ignorant of him. It is better to feel God than to study him. It is better to experience God than to feel God. And it is better to become God than to experience him. And again, clearly he's talking about his own experience of himself as God, and he knows that that's available to all of us, and he's encouraging us, as he does throughout his work. These are just a couple examples to come to that experience ourselves. And of course, that's certainly for me. I feel like that's a long ways off, but something that we strive towards. And I emphasize these 2 points because, as I say, I think the story of Meher Baba's encounter with Babajan, his revelation, is extraordinarily beautiful. But also because I think there are very important implications for each of us who follow Meher Baba. Implications that flow from these 2 conclusions. And again, just to repeat them, that his work and his ministry all have flowed from his own direct experience of God and of himself as God, that is to say, his experience with Babajan, and of course Upasani Maharaj and the other masters. And secondly, that he emphasized the importance of each of his followers to strive ourselves toward having our own individual direct experience of God, without the need for intermediaries, without the need for churches and religious structures and all of that. So these are we tend to take these things for granted, but when we reflect on them a little bit, as I hope to do today, I think they're very important. So in order to reflect on these things and the implications of these 2, I would say facts, but 2 ideas, 2 ways of thinking about Meher Baba and his work, I want to focus on 3 things. One is his own direct experience of God and himself as God, as well as his response to this experience, and that's a key part of it, and we'll get to that in just a second. Also, the whole idea of revelation and madness. When he had this experience, it looked to all the world like he had lost his mind, not like he had become realized in any way. It looked quite the opposite to many, many people. So what's that relationship between revelation and madness? I want to reflect on that a little. And then finally, what are some of the implications? And there are many, 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 many implications. I'm just going to try to focus on 2 that I think are useful for us to think about. So what are some of the implications of these reflections for the ongoing growth of, if there is such a thing as a Meher Baba movement, what does this mean for us? What does it mean for the challenges that we are going to be facing as time goes on? So, when Meher Baba started out, he wasn't Meher Baba. He was Merwan Shahryar Irani. He grew up in the small Parsi community of Pune, India. He was then known as Merwan. He was the son of Shahryar and Shireen Irani. And now the Parsi community of Pune lived primarily in the British cantonment, or the military camp, and the community prospered through their service relationship with the British government. And they were very influenced by the British. They were considered by the British really to be more British than Hindu. They were they were able to operate well with the British, and the British liked that. So they had this community close to the British, and it's important also to realize and to know that Shahryar and Shireen were not Parsis. Parsis had been in India for hundreds of years, but there were Zoroastrians who had recently immigrated. So they had a sort of relationship with the Parsi community. Zoroastrians did. Immigrant Zoroastrians had a similar relationship to the Parsi community as that the Parsi community had with the British. So Merwan's mother, Shireen, had very hopeful ambitions for her son. She hoped that he would make a place for himself in the social life of the Pune cantonment. He was, by all accounts, just a wonderful young man, and there was so much promise in him. She was just very thrilled to have such a wonderful son. He was excelled at school. He was loved by all his friends for his kindness and his diplomacy. He was great at sports. This is him with his cricket team, having won some prize or other. This is Baba's down at the lower left of the table there. And they were not a wealthy family. Shahryar had tea shops around the Pune area, mainly the cantonment, but elsewhere also in Kasbapeth area, which is a poorer area. They lived in the Quarter Gate section of Pune, which is this, now I've been told, I don't know, but they've been told that this structure here is one of the places they lived when he was quite young, when Merwan was quite young. They also lived in of course, the Pumpkin House, which we're all familiar with, who've been to India. And then they went back and forth to different locations, and eventually, of course, they settled in the MEHER Baba House, which is across the way from the Pumpkin House in this area of Butler, Mohalla. Merwan went to St. Vincent High School. He did his studies at Deccan College, which was on the far side of the Mula River. If you've been to Nagar through Pune, you probably crossed that river, which he crossed many times on his cycle. And it was some distance from the cantonment, so he rode his cycle there every day. And he would often pass this old woman named Babajan. He was vaguely aware of her, seated under a nearby tree on his way to and from Deccan College. Now, there's a tree near the Mula River, but typically he would see her under a tree where her tomb shrine is now, which is in Malcolm Tank Road, this road which now leads into Meher Dastur Road. It's been changed. The name's been changed to Meher Baba's name to honor him. But under that tree, Babajan would sit, and Meher Baba in Lord Meher, and also in the appendix section of Listen Humanity, he describes his meeting with Babajan. So this is kind of a lengthy quote, but I think it's worthwhile because it's quite certainly descriptive of this experience and his subjective experience at meeting Babajan. So he says, quote, "When I was in college, I met Babajan. I was going to college on my cycle, and Babajan was sitting there under a tree. Around her, she had a group of some Pathans. They are a very stalwart people, very fierce-looking. And I had a great pleasure when I was doing research in India. I met a man named Akbar Khan, who is a very stout, stalwart man, and he was the grandson of one of the men who was always around, one of these Pathans, who was always, Pathan simply means people from the northern, the name is escaping me now, but the northern area of Baluchistan, where Babajan came from. And these men were very devoted to Babajan, and this man told me that he would, his grandfather would take him by the hand and take him to Babajan's tomb and teach him all about Babajan, and he was now, and his family were all devotees of Babajan. A lovely experience. So there were all these stalwart people, Baba says, very fierce looking. And Babajan, Baba says, the old lady just called me, beckoned me, and I got down from my cycle. Then she kissed me on the forehead, and I knew. I had that experience. At that very moment, everything disappeared, vanished completely. Why? Because I found myself infinite. There was no room for anything else besides me. That kiss made me infinite, so that there was no room for anything else. Everything vanished but me. How can I explain that experience to you? But when you get that experience, you come to know." And that's from Lord Meher. Then he goes on, this is from Don Stevens's appendix in Listen Humanity. He says, quote, "With just a kiss on the forehead, between the eyebrows, Baba John made me experience thrills of indescribable bliss, which continued for about 9 months." And these parenthetic dates are put there by Don. This is happened in May of 1913. He says, so then after 9 months, he says, then one night she made me realize in a flash the infinite bliss of self-realization. And God clarifies that. Don clarifies that just to say God realization. So it's 9 months from May 1913. He has these indescribable experiences of bliss. And then in January 1914, in a flash, she gave him the infinite bliss of God realization. He says, quote, "But after I became self-conscious, I could not have said all this, nor could I say it even now if it had not been for the indescribable spiritual agonies which I passed through for another period of 9 months." So this is from January 1914 until October 1914. "In returning to normal consciousness of the suffering of others." And I find this a remarkable statement. He says, I went through spiritual agonies for another period of 9 months in returning to normal consciousness of the suffering of others. So Bob is saying normal consciousness, for him at least, is consciousness of the suffering of others. And he goes on, he says, "During those 9 months, I remained in a state which no one else could have tolerated for even 9 days. My sleepless, staring, vacant eyes worried my mother most. She believed, and told others, that I had gone mad. In her anguish, she could not refrain from going once to Baba John and demanding to know what she had done to me. Shireen Mai did this because she knew that I used to go and sit near Baba John for a while each night during the previous 9 months. And Don is indicating here that that was from May 1913 to January 1914, before he actually got realization. Baba John, Baba says, indicated to my mother that I was intended to shake the world into wakefulness, but that meant nothing to Shireen Mai in her distress. For a long time, I was given regular medical treatment, but no amount of drugging and injections could put me to sleep." Well, this is a remarkable story for anyone to tell, and it's particularly remarkable for us knowing the result, the subsequent life of Meher Baba. After this event, everyone in the Pune Persian community, including Meherwan's mother, became convinced that Meherwan had gone mad. Of course, there's the exception of Meherwan's father, Shahryar, and that's a whole lovely story, but we won't go into that at the moment. But he seemed to know throughout all this that there was some spiritual awakening going on with his son, but he just sat quietly and watched it unfold. So eventually, as Meherwan began to regain some awareness of the gross world, he was drawn intuitively to the 4 remaining perfect masters of the time. Through the guidance of Upasni Maharaj, Meherwan became fully integrated back into the gross physical world and was now a fully functioning spiritual master in his own right. Well, with this new responsibility, he now is gone through this extraordinary experience, and he has this new responsibility of his mission on earth. He knows now that he's the avatar. He knows what's required of him, and he gathers his disciples around him. He establishes educational institutions. He traveled around the world. He worked with the mad and the musts. He lived a life of traveling renunciate during his new life. He endured extreme pain and suffering through 2 automobile accidents, 2 collisions. He engaged in several years of seclusion work, and then he left his physical form to be buried in his tomb shrine at Meherabad. Well, far from being mad, Meherwan, now Meher Baba, had become an extremely high-functioning individual. When you read the accounts of how he would handle diverse situations, he was always many, many steps ahead of the Mandali. The Mandali often had no idea what in the world he was doing, but in the end, everything came back around. He was very, very high-functioning. He was certainly not the unbalanced person that people thought he was. He did not live up to his mother's hopes for community acceptance. As a matter of fact, the entire Parsi community turned very much against him, and his poor mother suffered terribly for that. However, he did leave a stunning body of written work, and a life of spiritual example that is yet to be fully documented. Despite thousands of pages written about him and hundreds of hours of audio and video recordings by those who knew him, there's still much left to be said about Meher Baba's life and work. And I say this from the position, you have to remember, I give papers at conferences of religion. I'm going to be presenting a paper on Baba in March, in just a couple of weeks. Someone there, can you mute? There's some, I'm hearing some conversation there. Can you all mute, please? Thank you. So I'm asking you to a certain extent to think, put yourself in the position of someone who's just introduced to this individual and is trying to understand what to think about this person. Clearly, something happened. There's a lot of historical documentation that something happened to him. And from his own account, he became spiritually awakened, and Bayu Bhasti Maharaj was ushered into a life of being a spiritual master. But the main point I want to make here is that this was no madman. What then, we might well ask, is the difference between revelation or spiritual awakening and madness? Well, there are two discourses that I think they're among my favorites, and they're often overlooked. In the foreword to William Donkin's wonderful book, The Wayfarers, Meher Baba has much to say about madness and he calls it supranormal and abnormal and or so-called normal. There's lots and lots in there that we could go on for a long time talking about, but I'm going to just pick a little section there. And he says this about it. He says, quote, "According to one way of interpretation, madness is a deviation from the average mode of consciousness and behavior, and its degree, that is, the degree of madness, can be measured by the amount of its departure from the average pattern." In other words, if someone is a little bit off the pattern, they're a little bit mad. If they're way, way off the average pattern of behavior, then we consider them to be quite mad. But, he says, according to another way of interpretation, madness is the incapacity of consciousness to understand or express truth. And its degree, that is, the degree of madness, is to be measured by the extent to which this ability to express and understand truth, or to which behavior deviates from truth. In other words, if consciousness can understand and express truth, then it's absolutely not mad, and if it's unable to express truth, then it's quite mad. Well, I'm not saying here that Meher Baba was a must. He uses this to describe the must states, and I'm not saying that he was a must. What I want to emphasize is that when people evaluated or evaluate now Meherwan's experience by the standard, quote, the standard of the average pattern of responses and actions, he can be seen to be quite outside the average pattern of behavior. When his behavior is evaluated by the standard of realization and expression of truth, then the observer needs to be much more careful in their evaluation and think, for example, well, what is truth? What does truth mean? For Baba, of course, we know that truth means that everyone and everything is God, and our goal is to become more and more aware of that and to disentangle ourselves from illusion and to more and more align ourselves with this truth, with this state which we are at present unconscious of. Now, this idea of evaluating Meher Baba's behavior can be made in regard to any phase of Baba's work, life and work, because there are phases where people say, what in the world was he doing? Often we learn afterwards, oh, that's what he was doing, as wonderful stories that Narshan was telling about the cricket game. It just looked not like normal behavior, and then all of a sudden it all comes around that it's a part of some kind of work that he was doing. And sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't happen, and we don't know what he was doing, and we still don't know what he's doing. But you might well ask, why does this matter? Why do I want to go on at length about Meher Baba's experience with Babajan? Why do I want to talk about how people thought he was mad? Why am I talking about how he described the evaluation of the mental state of musts? Well, I want to point out this because these patterns in Meher Baba's life because if we use our imaginations just a little bit, we can see parallels between Meher Baba's awakening and how he awakens us. And I know for myself, I know many people born into Baba families, they just naturally say, yeah, there's Baba. For me, it was very different, and I know for many Western people at least, we just suddenly get this intuitive sense of who Meher Baba is. And I know certainly my family, they thought it was too bad what happened to Jamie. He seemed to be so promising and everything, and then he got focused on this Meher Baba fellow, and they can't quite figure that out. It seems like I've gone mad, much the same way that Baba went mad. Well, in his discourse on the Avatar, Meher Baba says that during avataric periods, life as a whole is stepped up to a higher level of consciousness. It is geared to a new rate of energy. The transition from sensation to reason was one such step. The transition from reason to intuition will be another. Well, it seems to me evident that Meher Baba primarily draws people, like myself and others, to him through love and intuition, not through reason. At one time, the world overemphasized sensation and I would say lived on instinct and sensation, and had a poor, and we also say that there was sort of an age of mythology. People lived in a sort of a mythological sense where they weren't quite able to put together these, the kind of scientific reasoning that developed during this period of the Enlightenment, which was roughly, in the Western world at least, it was from 1685 to 1815. During that period and since that period, reason has come to dominate Western culture. And in his discourse on the Avatar, Baba seems to be strongly suggesting that he is ushering in this transition from reason to intuition. We went from, with great struggle, from instinct and sensation to reason, and now we're moving from the phase of reason to intuition. Now, this is not to say that reason is a bad thing. Reason is a wonderful thing. We couldn't do these Zoom things. We wouldn't have computers. We wouldn't have airplanes to fly us to Mehrabad and automobiles and all that if it were not for the application of very sound reasoning by scientists and others. So it's not against reason, but it's integrating reason with intuition, I think, is what Bob is talking about. But we are now charged. This is one of the implications of Baba's experience, is that we are now, you could almost say, forced by the situation that we're in as followers of Baba. Not only is our intuition awakened by him and his awakening, but we also need to be aware of the fact that those around us who have not yet gotten that same intuitive sense of who Meher Baba is, will likely, if not think us mad, will think us certainly to have a poor judgment. So in this light, we are the mad ones who have intuitively grasped the importance of Meher Baba's life and work. Likewise, if Meher Baba has awakened us at all to the truth that he brings us, then we must be as patient and loving with the mad ones around us who have not intuitively grasped this truth. We must be as patient and loving with them as Meher Baba was with the mad ones in his Rahuri mad ashram. And if you read the stories in the Wayfarers about how he treated, now I'm not talking about the musts. There was, Muhammad the must was in that ashram. There may have been another must. But mainly he was working with completely mad people, just normal mad people, as Duncan describes them. Not musts, except for the exception of Muhammad. And it's interesting to me also that Meher Baba went to the West, gathered Western disciples, and it wasn't long after working with Western disciples that he started working with the mad. He worked with the mad, then he worked with the Westerners. To me, there's a very obvious pattern there, and it relates to this idea of where is normal, where is madness, where is the sense of intuitively being enlightened to the truth, and when is someone supranormal, as Baba calls them, above the line, when is someone at the line where they at least have this intuitive realization of the truth, and when are they below the line? And then there's below the line where there are a lot of people still stuck in this realm of sensation and instinct, and really don't have a handle on reason yet. And there's some people who are in reason, But if their intuition isn't awakened, then to people with an awakened intuition, they appear mad as well. So getting all of this straight is one of the things, one of the implications, I feel, of Baba's awakening and how he awakens us. And it's one of the things that we have to take into account when we try to present Meher Baba to others. It's, as the poet Hafiz says, those who judge all by reason will never understand the mystery of love. And that's one of the challenges, I think, for us as we go forward. But there's another point that I'd like to discuss before opening it up to discussion or questions or whatever you may have. And that is that, as near as I can tell, this is also not only this whole business of Baba's awakening with Baba John and everything. There's no stories like that in the history of religions. It's really quite unique, and I feel it's unique for a reason. It's because of the specific kind of work that's related to this intuition and reason business. I think that story is central, and it's new and different from any of the other avataric stories of awakening. And as near as I can tell, this is also, in addition to that, it's the first avataric advent, where the avatar has specifically stated that he does not want a religion to be formed around his teachings. He said many, many things about this. I think I have a couple of quotes on this, but this one, he says, quote, "Truth has nothing in the least to do with religion. It is far, far beyond the limited and bare dictates and doctrines of a religion. Truth is bare and simple in its requirement that you give up Maya, particularly lust, anger, and greed. Anybody can aspire and attain to the truth. There are no caste distinctions or prejudices there." And he goes on, and essentially he's saying you don't need to belong to a religion which has caste distinction. You don't need to belong to a religion that has prejudice or whatever. Anyone can aspire and attain to the truth. So this again underlines Meher Baba's encouragement of each individual to find their own direct path to God. As he says, anybody can aspire and attain to truth. So at the same time, Baba emphasizes the importance of people coming together in his name, working in his name, and preserving his legacy. There are specific places in the world associated with Baba's work that he indicated should continue to function after his passing. Chief among these are Meherabad, Meherzad, and the Meher Spiritual Center, but there are other places associated with his work. So it's easy for us to say that Baba wants each of us to find our own direct path to God and to have our own direct experience of him, and that Meher Baba does not want us to form a religion in his name. It's also easy for us to say that Baba wants us to come together, to form groups, and to work together in his name. However, as I've indicated earlier, this is a completely new avataric development. Saying that we should have an individual path to God and that we should not form a religion around the avatar's work may not be as simple as it seems in times to come. Right now, we have, if you look at how religions are formed, how they're developed, there is a revelation usually of some kind, typically an avatar, although religions have been formed around perfect masters and others. But there's a revelation, and then there's a group of people who want to, in very good, with good intentions, want to preserve that legacy, as well they should. The teachings and the memory of this great individual, they want to preserve them. But this group eventually becomes a priestly caste. And as Baba says, when he talks about rites, rituals, and ceremonies, he says that this role, this preservation of the legacy, this role, these priestly functions, take on an importance in their own right. That's the word they use. Rituals, ceremonies, traditions, they all take on an importance in their own right, rather than as being an expression of truth. And this is the danger for all these things. So the question that we are going to have to face, and have to face even now, right now, we're still in this early phase. We start out, it's just Baba, then there are his immediate disciples, then there are people who are close to his disciples, or as the disciples, which are now starting to die away. There's almost, I guess there's no Mandali left now. There are people who are certainly with Baba are still around. Thankfully, we have Narshwa and Bill LePage is over in Australia. We just lost Tom Riley, who had been with Baba. And there are others, people who had been very, very young, Charles Haynes and Wendy and Dee Dee Eaton just lives down the street from us, all people who met Baba and were around him. But as all of these people go away, then questions begin to arise about how that's going to work. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my thoughts about Meher Baba are informed by my reading of his words, by learning from his disciples, and from my university training. And as I said, I was trained in my doctoral work in an area where I've worked in universities in teaching world religions. That was kind of weird. The main focus of our training was so that we could teach world religions and kind of work in the field of they don't call it comparative religions anymore. They call it critical theories. It means rigorous study of religions. And I can tell you from all of that work and from others, in every case, in every avataric advent that we know of, not only has a religion been established, but a religion that within a few centuries went completely off the rails and diverged greatly from the avatar's original teachings. Meher Baba emphasized this again in the 1920s. He says, the light of Zoroaster has been extinguished by his followers themselves. His was the highest form of Sufism. If Zoroaster were born again in this material world, he would find it difficult to recognize his own religious tenets as practiced by the present-day followers of his creed. The same is true of all religions. The Muslim mullahs, the Hindu pundits, the Zoroastrian dasturs, and Christian priests have mutilated the original religion for their own selfish ends. Well, this issue of following Meher Baba as he would want us to do without establishing a religion in his name, as I say, may seem easy now. However, if history is any teacher, it will become more complex as time goes on. Millions are going to come. There should be no doubt about that. This is certainly the growth is quite big in India at the moment, and it's growing not as exponentially, but still growing here in the States and in Europe and across the world. So as more and more people come, places and institutions associated with Meher Baba will become centers of great power and influence. This has always been the case. In the case of Christianity, for example, early on in the development of Christianity, the people who followed Jesus were in grave danger of being martyred. They were sent to thrown to the lions in some cases, thrown to gladiators, and just their homes and towns were burned. They refused to do the Roman sacrificial rites, and so they would be killed for that or persecuted in a variety of ways. And this went on for quite a while, but by a few centuries later, the Emperor Constantine, the emperor of the head of the Roman Empire, became a Christian. And so it went from being, you had to be very, very dedicated. You had to be absolutely in love with Jesus and really a serious Christian to maintain your connection with Jesus through all these persecutions. But then, once Constantine became a Christian and declared that the entire empire was Christian, then people became Christian because it was more convenient. They would help them to get a job if they became Christian. So this whole shift comes. Now, similar things happened in both, almost immediately in Islam. Of course, in Islam, very soon after the Prophet died, all the people that we would, many, if not all, of the central people that were Mandali were killed. Some murdered in really vicious ways, and then the so-called caliphate, there were these rightly guided caliphs for a while who were people who were kind of Mandali members, and then very soon after this, Muawiyah from Syria took over, and just everything very rapidly became just empire building and really had very little to do. There were Sufis, and there were centers of mystical life that were going on, of people who followed the Prophet, and of course, same thing with Jesus, and the same thing with the Buddha. These are the three that we have the most detailed historical record for. But there was infighting immediately with the Buddhists as well, trying to decide, who was going to, what teachings of the Buddha were going to be central, et cetera, et cetera. So these are things that happen. It's happening very slowly with us, thankfully, but we're coming to that period now that these are the kind of questions that are going to come up. Questions of authority are going to arise. There will be many other complications as well. So although some of this may be inevitable, it behooves us to do our best to be as aware and as conscious as we can of some of the possible pitfalls that may await us. So I say that these are implications because the first implication is this whole business of reason and intuition, and how all of us, I feel like everybody who follows Meher Baba has some intuitive sense of who he is. We certainly don't come, I mean, I came to him rationally by reading, but it was not rationality that drew me to India and drew me to be committed to Meher Baba. It was an intuitive something that he does to us inside that is not, I mean, afterwards I can make rational explanations, as I try to do today, for example. But ultimately, that's not where it comes from, and that's not where it comes for most of us. So this business of dealing with intuition and how we communicate with those who are interested in Baba, and as we become greater in number, there's going to be more questions. The Christians were not martyred at first because they just weren't much of a threat. There wasn't much of an issue because there were only a few scattered Christians, and they just thought, oh, they're just crazy or whatever, so they didn't really worry about them. But when they began to become established, that's when martyrdom started, because then people were they were frightened. They became mistrustful. They didn't understand them, and so they attacked them. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to us, but what I'm saying is we need to be able to talk as this shift is coming, and it may not happen in our lifetimes, but it's the kind of thing that we're going to have to be aware of as this comes. This question of intuition and how we communicate intuitive ideas to people is going to be important. When we're talking to Baba people, it's not an issue. When we're talking to others, and particularly others who are not sympathetic, having ready answers for the many questions that come will be helpful, I think. And of course, the second thing I'm talking about, and as I say, there are many implications of this unique advent of Meher Baba's, but these are the two I wanted to talk about today. And the second one is simply this question of how do we not form a religion and at the same time preserve Meher Baba's legacy? What are we going to do differently from every single avataric advent that's yet occurred? So that's a big thing in conclusion. I just want to say, and I want to, I'm hoping to be provocative so that we can have some discussion. People can ask some questions, and I hope you will have some ideas. But just to conclude, we are the mad ones who have intuitively recognized something very great in this Persian spiritual master, Meher Baba. He says that he is God in human form, and we say, yes, Baba, because we know intuitively that it's true. Although we can talk to others about him, we cannot give others that intuitive knowledge that he is who he says he is. Only he can do that. No amount of reasoning on our part is going to help us. And similarly, we have a responsibility to preserve his legacy without forming a religion in his name. This is something that has never been done before in recorded history. No avatar has come and not had a religion form around him. So, I don't end this presentation today with any answers. I want to end it with a question, and I hope some of you will have some response to this question. And the question is this: how can we best tell others about Meher Baba, spread his name, preserve his legacy for all time, and do this in a way that would please him? And with that, I say thank you, Narshwan and Maruk and beloved archives, and every one of you for listening to me. And I hope we could have some discussion now for a little while. And then when we get tired of that, I'll sing some songs. So anyone have a thought or a question or a concern?
Hey, Jamie, this is Tim Garvin.
Hi.
How you doing? Hi, man. Look, I would just mention one thing that that we might address, and it's easy to see that this is the first time in recorded history that we have had an inviolate method of maintaining the sensible environment of his message. We're not going to lose these printed texts. They're electronically etched all the time, unless there's some sort of nuclear war and we lose everything. But I doubt that. You know, the archives are diligently at work. And
That's
so at least we have.
Yeah, we have not just that. We have more detailed biographical information about Meher Baba than we've ever had. We have photographs, which we've never had. We have movies that we've never had. It's interesting that he decided to be silent because there's no audio of his voice. However, in addition to all of that, there's there are many implications that we got all these books. We've got there's two things that I find completely fascinating about Baba, which he seems to have done he seemed to have done it without thought, but it seems very significant. One of those things is that he, except for one or two times, for example, he always had someone keep night watch, and he had all these excuses. Oh, the ghosts want to come and get liberation from him, and they bother him at night and all that. But he always, 24 hours a day, someone was with him. Someone was with him from the 1920s until the time he dropped his body. There was someone with him 24 hours a day. Bao was with him towards the end of his life, but there was always a night watchman who sat in the room with him and knew everything he did. So that's one thing. And then another thing, he would just casually say, he started out with Ramju, just said, while you're here, just keep a diary and write about your daily experiences. Well, of course, Baba knew that the most important things that happened in any of their daily experiences were what Baba was doing. So from that time in the 20s, when he first gathered his early disciples in Manzli Mim, and actually before Manzli Mim even, he had people, and multiple people. There's a number of different diaries that still have not been published, but they all kept diaries. So already we have many thousands just in Lord Meher of pages. And then there are many hundreds and probably into the thousands of individual biographies of people who spent time with Baba. They account for all these things. And then there's all these diaries that have not yet been published. There's Adi's diaries. I know Narshwin's got those, and will come out at some point. There's this, you can download from the Trust a handwritten collection of, they call it the combined diaries. That some of that may have contributed to Lord Meher, I'm not sure, but the point is that almost every moment of Meher Baba's life can be accounted for, and someone was with him. It wasn't like he was sneaking around doing something nefarious when nobody was looking, because somebody was always looking. So you're right, we have that, and we have those books. However, historically, not only have texts been altered, but people are very selective about. I mean, the number of texts and the number of words from Baba that we have is wonderful, but that also opens up a huge field for people to be selective and cherry pick what quotes they want to use and in what order they use them. So we're not out of the woods. It certainly is a wonderful thing that we have that, but that doesn't mean that that people who are driven by ego concerns can't create mischief.
Jamie?
Well, and create many different kinds of variations on
yeah,
on
exactly,
what
and
Baba's
that can be a
message
good
was.
thing. It can be a good thing, and we can hope for the best, but it can also be questionable. And depending on how well our intuition and our reason are working, we'll just see what the future brings. Ira, you had a question?
Yeah.
Or a thought?
I
Hi,
was
Ira.
reading-
Good to see you. Jay Baba.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, long time.
I just read Saint Teresa of Avila. That was during the 1500s. Okay. Now, in her book, she says that swordsmen came to the church, with the idea of blessing their swords. Okay. And then they went out in the field and killed non-believers. Okay.
Sure.
So, I mean, how could Christ's message be so perverted?
Is that a question you were asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's easy because people are people, and I mean I can put them in psychological language or Baba language. Our sanskaras are focused in a particular way. There's this old saying, if you're a hammer, everything is a nail, right? Well, if you're a warrior, everybody is an enemy. Unless you the warrior is always only as good as the king that he or she serves. Usually warriors are hymns, but the warrior is only as good as the king that they serve. And if the king they serve is saying, we must kill the infidels or whatever, I mean, we have stuff like that going on today. People are claiming to be Christian, and yet they want to do violence to people in the name of Christ. I mean, you even have in Ceylon, there are militant Buddhists, if you can believe that. Militant Buddhists who are fighting with other Buddhists. So, yeah, it depends on the focus of somebody's sanskaras and what they choose to focus on. And so that's part of what I'm saying is every one of us, it's our responsibility to have, there's the other thing that happens with Baba people is that we want to put our heart first. That's the thing to do. But then we often have no boundaries. And Baba had the best boundaries of anybody I ever saw. So we also have to have boundaries. Now, obviously, boundaries in this case doesn't mean we want to go slaughtering people with swords, but we need to be able to tell people, no, don't step on Baba's chair. Don't do you have to have, that's why they have little ropes around things where things are, so you can have boundaries. But people, so I was about to say, well, we want to open up our hearts to everybody. That's the way we do it. And we do that, but we also have to open up our hearts with a good, sound, reasonable sense of where the boundaries lie. But how people can do that has been a question that no doubt people have asked for a long time. And one of the things I will say, which often confuses people, but another thing, it's where people's sanskaras are focused for sure. Yeah. But we have to remember, and this is part of what I was saying about when I talk about the mad people, we have to be able to deal with the mad people in a loving and kind way, but also with strong boundaries. There's always going to be, in God Speaks, Baba talks about the first most human form. Previously was an animal form, then there's the first. There are always going to be people who are in the first most human form. There will always be people who have more animal sanskaras than human sanskaras, and they're going to be a problem for the people who have got, a couple 100,000 lifetimes behind them, and a couple, some exposure to avataric messages. So the first most human form is, we need to be compassionate and loving and have good boundaries to protect the weak and to protect the people that are going to be.
Even people that came from a different universe, they might be more green than more hot.
That's beyond my pay grade. I don't know. But yeah, well, thank you, Ira. It's a good point, and it's a good question, and it's one that we're always going to have to deal with. Well, I see 3 hands up. There may be more.
Hi, Jamie.
I don't know who got up first.
Yeah.
Prakash, you want to help me with that and choose people?
Sure. It's Konda who raised his hand first. So, Konda, can you please go?
Sure. Hi, Jamie. This is Konda.
Hi, Konda.
Hi, Jamie. How can one get true happiness? I know we actually live in a world so where we have to live with our family, we have to do our job, we have to pay bills. So, and at the same time, we have to keep Baba. So, but true happiness, how can one get to true happiness?
Yeah, I think Narshwan knows the answer to that one. I'm not sure I know the answer to that one. But seriously, that's part of our job. That's the first level of our job before we even work. They say, and when you get on an airplane, They say if the mask comes down, put the mask on yourself first before you help a child. Well, that's the first job. Before we start worrying about people coming and asking about Baba, we have to keep ourselves in good working order. And the only way I know a lot of different ways, but the number one best way is to just keep remembering and thinking about, have a good steady diet of Meher Baba. I mean, we have, as Tim was just saying, we have countless pages of words to read. We have audio tapes and videos. We have all these different ways to remember him. And he has discourses on happiness and telling us how to be happy. So we certainly, I know I'm happier when I remember those times with him, and when I can bring them into my work when I'm doing, there's some rote things you have to do that really have nothing to do with the most joyful moments. But the more disciplined we can be about making sure Baba's in our lives, I think the easier that is. But it's a sort. I don't mean to be glib. It's certainly a complicated question, and the only way I know to be happy is to keep thinking positive thoughts and keeping ourselves aware of all the different things that Baba really, especially in his discourses, he has an answer and an explanation for everything on the spiritual path, as far as I'm concerned. And I think if we look there, or if we ask other friends who have some insight and are aware of Baba's teachings, I think we will have a better chance, at least, at happiness. I hope that helps, Konda. Sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Konda, and thanks, Jamie. Wonderful. Next in line is Robert Smith. Jai Baba.
Hi, Robert. You there?
Their hand is raised, but I don't see any mic sign there. I'm not sure how it's going to work. Robert, Jai Baba.
Maybe he put his question in the.
Yeah, there is a question.
Okay.
Here. Well,
doesn't Meher Baba's wish for his lovers give guidance for boundaries and behavior in that context? If you wish to call yourself my lover, don't backbite, etc. Sure. Oh, absolutely. As I was just saying to Konda, I think answer to any question, if we know where to look, we will find it in things that Meher Baba has said. But we do have to, that's, again, it gets back to my, earlier in my presentation, I was saying that I think it's useful to know as much as we can, to read as much as we can, because that will help us to answer those kind of questions. And yeah, Baba had the best boundaries of anybody ever that I ever heard of. People always say, oh, we want to, embrace people in Baba's love and welcome everybody. Baba welcomed everybody, but he had very strict rules. And if you broke the rules, you're out, period. No question about it. So yeah, having good boundaries. There's the example of Baba's life and how he behaved with people, and there's also the example. And he had like flexible boundaries, because if you were just someone from outside, he was much more flexible with you. If you committed yourself to him and were one of his mandali, he was not very flexible. You may get a crack in the head if you did not behave. Why? Because it's his responsibility to train you. Once you commit yourself and he accepts you as a disciple, now you have a responsibility to him, but he also has a responsibility to you as your master. He said that himself to Bao. So, who's next? Is Judy next, or who's next?
Yeah, Judy is next. Jai Baba, Judy.
Hi, Judy. You're muted, Judy.
Yeah.
Okay, I think now I'm not. First of all, I want to thank you, Jamie. This it has been very meaningful to me, this session.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
One of the things you said, or one of the things that you shared that Baba said, that a truth was giving up Maya, lust, greed, and anger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that Baba already has awakened us in many ways to intuition in the cultures. Am I loud enough with my computer?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sure.
Okay, great.
I can hear
Thank
you. Yeah.
So many people, I have the incredible fortune of working at the Gateway at the MEHER Center. And so many people drop in and want to know. And many people are aware of a feeling of oneness. So it's oftentimes a way of connecting with people to speak of Baba's work of beginning to awaken us to oneness and godness. And, you know, for many people that transcends religion, you know, and certainly in the, I'm going to say, more secular cultures, people are shedding religion. So they're also more open to hearing how Meher Baba speaks of the oneness of godness. And one of the things that was so thrilling to me in your presentation was, you know, Baba is encouraging us to that direct experience. So I really appreciated that focus that you had on that. So that's basically what I wanted to say.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's you do have a unique opportunity and challenge being at the Gateway like that. I know, and it's great work that you guys do, and it's hard. And I think there's a you know, many people out there, and many of them aren't attracted to the center at all. Of those who come, probably more, if they're open to the center, they're going to be open to that oneness idea. There are people who religion historically has been exclusive. You see that a lot in Christianity and in Islam, and not as much in Buddhism, but there's this thing that you're in or you're out. And if you're out, you're going to hell. And if you're in, you may still go to hell, but you have kind of a chance, you know. But so that problem is one that until people kind of get over, until they're in that realm where they understand they want to shed the exclusivity, we're not going to make much headway with people in that way. But yeah, I understand. It makes sense to me that you would see more people who connect to Baba because of that theme of oneness than you would. I mean, I know people who've given tours, for example, on the center, and there'd be somebody who's just very closed off because they come from an exclusive religious background. Right. Thanks, Judy. That was very useful and very helpful, I think, for me to even thinking about that.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Sure.
Judy, and thanks, Jamie. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Next, it's going to be Elizabeth. Jai Baba, Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth. Jai Baba.
Hi, Jay. I could not stay away.
Oh, good.
Anyway, it was such a fantastic, both presentations. Unfortunately, my internet went in and out, so I'm glad there's going to be a recording. I was really fascinated by your going into the issue of mental illness and God consciousness, because that is really a difficult subject and not many people address it. I'm going to listen to that again because I don't really, and it is a kind of scary thing, because if you really believe all the stuff that Baba says we're supposed to believe in God speaks, you're going to look like you're crazy to the world. I mean, it's just like to try to say that the creation is not real is just crazy. Anyway,
sure. No, I encourage everybody on that line. I really encourage everybody. There's two sources, 5 really, you could say, but there's these 2 discourses at the beginning of the Wayfarers, which are just, I really think they should be in the discourses proper, because they're brilliant, wonderful discourses, very useful, particularly in our time. They explain a lot about Baba's work with Must, but I think it explains his work with us as well. But then there's also the discourses, the 3 discourses on the ego in the discourses proper. And all of those kind of discuss aspects of that, but particularly those 2 Wayfarers discourses are great.
And I think that's particularly important after having been through this pandemic, and now with the situation in the world, particularly Ukraine, and God knows what we're getting ready to go through. There are more and more people who are dealing with these mental issues, and so many people have passed away. I mean, I have several people right now I'm kind of supporting. I'm trying to support spiritually, but they're not really believers in God. But it's just, and I wonder why are these people so close to me, and I can't really discuss this. But anyway, the other thing that you mentioned is how are we going to prevent the creation of these religious little cohorts that are exclusive and then tend us away from the original message. Like in space, if you get something a little wrong, you end up in the long run being way off. It's the same kind of concept.
Yeah.
And Baba said in small groups, sharing in small groups, sharing, and I think he meant sharing your direct experiences, you know, and so these Zoom meetings are really important, and our local group meetings are very important. That we have these personal connections, which is, I guess, our inner links, you know. So, and I think we already see, you know, but I know more about Christianity. You know, you had the period when the Apocrypha were written, and the other group that starts with an E, and I can't remember, but other esoteric things. They're accepted by the Eastern Orthodox, but not by the Protestants, and some things by the Catholics and not by the Protestants. You know, all that happened in the first about 100 years. And then later on, various conferences put some things in and other things out. And then there was this aspect that ended up in the Eastern Church that was more focused on the spirit. So there were elements of that. Anyway, I think we are beginning to see even that and issues regarding publications. What are Baba's words and what aren't Baba's words? And you're already starting to see that. And then the final thing I wanted to say is, I think the way we stay honest is know that we can deceive ourselves and that others can be deceived. And in small groups, we can help each other take off those veils and help us see what we're not seeing. But it takes courage to look at ourselves and humility to be able to say, I did that wrong, you know, or, you know, someone points something. You don't want to see these things that are not very good within you. You know, it's not easy. It hurts, you know.
That's absolutely true. Baba talks about that specifically in the discourses on the ego, where he talks about the implicit ego and bringing the implicit ego into conversation with the explicit ego. Yeah,
well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm glad you've got there was some very good contributions to, you know, things to think about. But the main thing with all that, whether in small groups or however we do it, and my kind of answer to all that is just to continually expose ourselves to Baba, particularly Meher Baba as a human being. We tend to get up in these abstract ideas, oh, he's God, and you know, I have no idea what the heck Meher Baba was, but he was a human being, that I know. And when I encounter him as a human being, whatever he came to bring, whatever flows through him just flows naturally. And we don't have to do any intellectual acrobatics, because it just flows out of him when we encounter him as a human, which he was very, very human and very beautiful at being human. So that's my 2 cents on that. You're welcome. Thanks for contributing to that. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks, Jamie. Next in line is Joe Carlson, Joy Carlson.
And we're going to, Joy, and I don't know if there's 2 more, we can do those, and then I'm going to have to go and get set up with my music so I can play some music, and then Narshwin is going to read a guzzle while I'm doing that. So, Joy?
Hi.
Yes? Hi.
Hi, I didn't hear your whole presentation, and I was in and out a little bit, but I didn't hear you mention, I know you mentioned intuition, but before I came to Baba, I was part of a couple of groups where we focused basically on techniques of who am I for hours and days. And it came to me when my mind was unloaded, I should say, that I had a flash of who I am. And that never left. That's never left. And it wasn't permanent, but I got the mystical experience of it. And I went from being atheist or agnostic to, like, when I finally did discover Baba, that he said what I had experienced. And so I knew that he knew and I knew at the same time. And it changed my whole life in the 70s, actually. And I don't really talk about this with people, but I was so grateful to come across Baba, who said what I had experienced about himself. And it's more of a comment than a question, but I kind of long for that. And Baba talks about this, I think, in discourses, which creates conflict in me, because I think he says you can have these experiences of the ultimate, but they are not permanent. So you shouldn't get all too excited about it. But still, they never leave either. Once you have something in that kind of mindlessness, I should say, I had no idea what was going to come up after days of who am I? No idea. I wouldn't have said it. You know, it didn't even occur to me that that's what I could be in words. So I guess you call it mystical, or, you know, the veil dropped for a flash. And I may not have come to Baba had I just read about it. So anyway, that's just.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that's kind of what we were talking about. Certainly what I was talking about is we intuitively connect with Baba. We don't do it through a rational decision of any kind. Thank you. I'm going to need to go get set up, but Jane, is it Jane the last question?
Yeah.
Jane, you ready?
Hi, Jamie. Yeah, great.
Hi.
Brilliant presentation. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. This is such a good question, so important for us all to be aware of. And the thing that came up for me when I was listening to you and hearing the questions is the first passage in God Speaks, where he says, I'm not come to establish any cult, society or organization, nor even to establish a new religion. The religion that I shall give teaches the knowledge of the one behind the many. The book that I shall make people read is the book of the heart that holds the key to the mystery of life. I shall bring about a happy blending of the head and the heart. I shall revitalize all religions and cults and bring them together like beads on one string. So I'm just interested of your response to that not only is he's saying, I mean, he says so many things, but this idea of bringing all religions together is another aspect that we have to be conscious of. So,
yeah, and he acknowledges that there are people who are always going to want forms. And actually, if you read some of the literature that's out there, some of it's published, some of it's not. When he was working with Mrs. Deuce and Don Stevens on the Charter for Sufism, and he talks about how there could be similar, using the Sufism Charter as a model, there could be Vedanta reoriented, and there could be Christianity reoriented, and there could be Buddhism reoriented. The idea isn't that we don't need a new religion, we already got plenty of religions and there's one place where he says, I think Mrs. Deuce says, well, you know, maybe we could be the church, the Baba church. He said, no, there's enough churches. We don't need more churches. We need to, if people feel comfortable with that, then they can, as long as they reorient it so that it's focused on me, and then everything will flow nicely. So there's, I mean, I think that's one of the ways he wants to bring things together like beads on one string, is that if we're drawn to a particular faith path, and this is true in many, I know I teach a lot of Carl Jung, and Jung also said if people are going to do their sort of internal work, they want to do it, they don't want to go off to some abstract thing that's from another place. They want to go back to their own ancestral roots, the ancestral faith. And Baba more or less was saying that also, that if you go back to the really, if you're drawn to that, go back to that, but integrate that, reorient that, as he says, towards me. So I mean, my response to what you read is just Jai Baba, and I got nothing else. But, you know, to bring it into line with what I was saying, I think that's, for people who are drawn to those things, they're going to see, if they're, you know, if they are able to, they're going to see that there's a direct line. Take any of those, you know, take Buddhism or take Vedanta or take Hinduism, Christianity, Islam. There's a direct line right to Baba. There's no reason for things to be, nothing new needs to be invented. That's all there, and when you can understand each development as being sort of built on in not unnecessary ways. Each one, after a century or two, things are built on in unnecessary ways that Bob is encouraging us to shed those things and to just get to that heart, like as he says, the one behind the many. Yeah, thank you, Jane. That's a great. I wish I'd found that quote. I didn't. It's the most obvious quote. I wish I'd found that before I was doing that. That would have been better than the quotes I had about Bob talking about religion. But yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
All good.
Well, Narshwin, I mean, I could do this forever. I love to talk and hear myself talk, but I've been, I've got a question here. Where in discourses does Baba talk about implicit and explicit ego? It's in the discourses on the ego. It's either the second or the third discourse on the ego. But those three discourses are excellent if you're interested in those things. Can you hear me there, Prakash?
One morning as I knelt in prayer, a shaft of light fell upon your picture there. The window was reflected clearly on your face. I could see the clouds of heaven in its place. I sank into a reverie, remembering all that you have meant to me, when suddenly you lifted me out of myself. Through that window I was taken somewhere else. Oh, Meher, you are my window to God, and you let me see into celestial realms and far beyond. And in you I see the light divine, though ancient shadows blind the path that I have trod. Meher, you are my window to God. Your curtain let a breeze blow in. As I bowed my head, I slowly drank it in. The prophets in their glory at the heights of bliss never tasted any sweeter drink than this. A songbird at your windowsill sang for his bread, and you offered him his fill. I swore to you that morning that I would remain till the starlight twinkled through your window pane. Oh, Meher, you are my window to God, and you let me see into celestial realms and far beyond. And in you I see the light divine, though ancient shadows line the path that I have trod. Meher, you are my window to God. If I should flatter you in song, praising this window more than what lies beyond, Forgive a heartsick lover longing to proclaim that this window and his Lord are both the same. I come to you begging for food. I have no way to express my gratitude, but to love you and to serve you, to do your will, and to sing for you beneath your windowsill. Oh, Meher, you are my window to God, and you let me see into celestial realms and far beyond. And in you I see the light divine, though ancient shadows line the path that I have trod. Meher, you are my window to God.
Jai Baba. Well, thank you all for sticking around and taking part in this part of the program. You're in for a big treat in a few minutes. After I finish here, my lovely wife Zoe is going to join us. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, Meher Baba, my God and my all, I pray I may serve you in great things and small. And I pray that by your grace my faith will never falter. Meher Baba, my God and my all. In your compassionate glory divine, you've dragged from the darkness this poor soul of mine. 10,000 lifetimes would not be enough to offer in thanks for the gift of your love. Oh, Meher Baba, my God and my all, I pray I may serve you in great things and small. And I pray that by your grace my faith will never falter. Meher Baba, my God and my all. On the loom of creation, such wonders you weave. Now we have grown to an armor to leave. Still on to salvation, you call those who dare. A far greater tapestry waits for us there. Oh, Meher Baba, my God and my all, I pray I may serve you in great things and small. And I pray that by your grace my faith will never falter. Meher Baba, my God and my all. Baba, my God and my all. I pray I may serve you in great things and small, and I pray that by your grace my faith will never falter. Meher Baba, my God and my all, my God and my all, my God and my all. Jai Baba. This is one that this last year I did this with the Meherabad Young Adults SAHAVAS. We did it over Zoom, but we did it with tabla and call and response like a real bhajan, and I'm just going to do it kind of Western style, but it was fun. If you get a chance to see that online, it was fun to do that with those guys and do it in bhajan style. For you, God is only a phantom, something untrue and unreal, a mystery you cannot fathom. Your confusion you cannot conceal. But listen, I'll tell you a secret that lives deep within my heart still. I know the Almighty is present. Believe me or doubt if you will. God has shown me His face. God has told me His name. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Avatar. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Avatar. Avatar, Avatar. Oh, you may run away from His presence or try to grasp Him with your mind, but those who encounter His essence find their will with His is aligned. Turn your back and laugh at my folly. I pray that one day you may know you need not be Rishi or Vali. His grace on you He will bestow. God has shown me His face. God has told me His name. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Avatar. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Avatar. Avatar, Avatar. Oh, you may think that I'm talking madness. You may think that I've lost my mind. I look at your plight now with sadness. I pray that one day you may find the mystery of all the ages. The priest in the temple conceals. The mind may approach it in stages, but to the heart filled with love He reveals. God has shown me His face. God has told me his name. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Avatar. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Avatar. Avatar, Avatar. Jai Baba. Let's see, this is one that I wrote a couple of years ago after having a dream. I actually heard the melody, or part of the melody, in a dream, and I thought, well, I probably ought to do something about that. Has the wholly unoriginal name of Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar, Meher Baba Ki Jai, just a phrase we occasionally say until it seeps into our hearts and our souls day by day. And in time, it will flow like the blood in our veins, through the trees with the wind and the rain, until only your praises remain. And so we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. For every soul who into this world fate may bring, you have fought like a warrior king, and for our sakes have renounced everything. With your blood pouring into the ground where you lay, without uttering a sound on that day, you paid the debt for us we could not pay. So we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. May your work be successful, we pray. With our glasses raised high, in communion we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. For those driven from their Native American homes, forced to forsake their histories in Rome, far away from their ancestors' bones. Although they prayed to their Maker for thousands of years, they were condemned to shed thousands of tears while living out all the worst of their fears. For them we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. And for those who arrived on the waterfront docks of old Charleston, chains firmly locked, be sold on the auctioneer's block. Stripped of all their belongings of family and kin, like beasts of burden, both women and men, searching the world for the hand of a friend. For them we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. May your work be successful, we pray. With our glasses raised high, in communion we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. And so now, for every child who has suffered and cried, for those pursued who have no place to hide, for every soul who has lingered and died, for everyone upon this troubled and beleaguered earth, beset with heartaches, sorrows and worse, across the expanse of this whole universe. For them we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. May your work be successful, we pray. With our glasses raised high, in communion we say, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. This is a song. It's going to do a couple more, and then Zoe will start. This is a song that I sang for Meher Baba's beloved Mara, and she indicated that she thought it wasn't too bad. I dreamed I saw my Savior waiting patiently, and in the silent darkness he called out to me. As I saw him there, a tear ran from my eye. I hid my face so he would not see me cry. so he would not see me cry. So he would not see me cry. But he came close and dried my tears with his robe. And I buried my face deep within its folds. He told me not to worry, for my fate had always been entwined with his, and I would always be with him. I would always be with him. Always be with him. I dreamed he took me high atop a golden hill and said this world only exists because it is my will. So do not try to change that which was meant to be. You are mine now. Your surrender is your gift to me. It is your gift to me. Your gift to me. I dreamed I saw my Savior come for all mankind. And when I awoke, I was surprised to find that somehow in that night so dark and lonely, you had come in your compassion to make my dream come true. To make my dream come true. To make my dream come true.
I'm going to do one more. Thank you all so much for attentively listening to my little presentation and having good questions, and for listening to this. And I'm going to bring up Zoe as soon as I do this. This is another song that I did for Mayor Baba's beloved Mara that she then made me teach to Ted so Ted could sing it at all their things. She liked it very much because it was one thing I learned about Mara. She liked two things. She liked songs that people could sing along with, and she liked songs to have Mayor Baba's name in them. So this one was both, so I guess that made it okay.
Sing a song of MEHER Baba, sing of the joy his magic touch of love will bring. Sing it loud, sing it bright, for the rest of your life. Never could you sing it long enough to give the praise that he is worthy of. He came to show that every heart could share the bounty of the treasures hidden there. He lit his candles in the dark that we might see. Above the noise, he sang his song of silence that we might be free. So sing a song of Meher Baba, sing of the joy his magic touch of love will bring. Sing it loud, sing it bright, for the rest of your life. Never could you sing it long enough to give the praise that he is worthy of. He personally sees to each detail, correcting every error without fail. There is no lesson of the world he does not teach. There is no corner of your heart he will not reach. So sing a song of Meher Baba, sing of the joy his magic touch of love will bring. Sing it loud, sing it bright, for the rest of your life. Never could you sing it long enough to give the praise that he is worthy of. In the morning, the birds sing out his praise. In the night, the crickets chatter of his ways. Shall we not shout his name aloud while we have the chance? Shall we not share with all the world this divine romance and sing a song of Meher Baba, sing of the joy his magic touch of love will bring. Sing it loud, sing it bright, for the rest of your life. Never could you sing it long enough to give the praise that he is worthy of. Never could you sing it long enough to give the praise that he is worthy of. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Thank you, everybody.
States. And thank you so much to all of you for attending the first SAHAVAS program of Beloved Archives. And we look forward to welcoming all of you to Beloved Archives. And especially if you're in the area, please let us know, and we would love to welcome you to the Beloved Archives and to our new museum that we recently inaugurated. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Jai Baba. Beautiful.